Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Michael McBride, and I'm joined by our dynamic duo of psychologists.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gayle MacBride, and today with me is my business partner and friend, Dr. Daniel Kessler. I'm so excited to be here with you. You always do such a good job of keeping my, clinical judgment in check. I am excited to see what you have in store for us today.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. No, I look forward. This is always, it's always fun to pick apart the questions that are brought to us. And Michael, I can't wait for this week's question.
Yeah, thanks. Well, welcome both of you. For any of the newbies out there, if you don't know what Am I the Asshole is, essentially someone has shared a scenario online and asked the internet, and in this case us, to weigh in on who is the asshole in the situation. Where information needs to be, if there's personal information given, I have tried to clean it up and make it a little more discreet. And then if you're new, also know to stick around through the credits. We always have some kind of bonus conversation. Today, I am posing the question. So I have something for both of our Veritas Psychology Partners. So,
all right.
But neither Dan nor Gayle know what I'm going to give them today. In addition to the question I'm going to throw their way. But this is the prompt I got for them. So I have to say, first of all, this is a little different than some of the other ones we've done. This is an old post. This has been around the internet for a while. And it made me laugh. And so I've kind of reimagined it as a Am I the Asshole situation. It's kind of how it was originally posted, was like, oh my gosh, I think I fucked up. Did I fuck up? And so then people weighed in. So it's kind of that format already.
All right.
But I've cleaned it up and just kind of shortened it because it is actually a really long story. Anyway, so this is what we got. This is the reimagined title.
Such suspense.
Yeah, I know.
And I should say, going into this, the OP does say this is only his second relationship that he'd ever been in, but he never indicates how old he was. So we don't know, he could be 20s or 30s or whatever, but this is second relationship. Anyway, so the topic is, am I the asshole for pretending I didn't know what a potato was at my girlfriend's family dinner?
This is this just
so many thoughts just went through my head. Oh my
right
God.
Off the bat as being hilarious and mildly adorable.
Okay, so this is the.
But I want to hear more, obviously.
This is the succinct version of the story, which is, let me tell you, I may have made the biggest mistake of my life. My girlfriend invited me to dinner with her parents, and as a naturally nervous guy, I wanted to make a good impression. So, of course, my brain decided the best way to charm them was to do a little comedic bit. When I saw baked potatoes on my plate, I thought it would be hilarious to pretend that I'd never heard of a potato before. I put on my best confused face and asked, "What is this?" Her parents naturally were baffled, but played along at first. I doubled down, acting amazed as they repeated, "It's a baked potato." And I kept pretending like, "What?" I am encountering this new exotic food for the first time. I decided to take a bite out of the potato. And when I did, I made a high-pitched noise and said, "Oh, that tastes very strange." Well. Let me tell you, that was my fatal error. They did not find it funny. Not even a little. Instead of getting the laughs I envisioned, they just got more and more confused and then increasingly irritated. My girlfriend was visibly embarrassed. Her dad outright called me out, demanding I admit that I was joking. But by then, I was in too deep. I'd committed to the bit, so I just kept insisting I had never heard of a potato in my life. Then to really sell it, I took a dramatic bite and made a high-pitched noise declaring, "Wow, that does taste very strange." Well, that was the final straw. Her dad exploded and told me to get the hell out of the house, and now my girlfriend won't answer my texts, probably because I'm still maintaining that I have never in my life encountered a potato. Am I the asshole for not backing down, or was I just misunderstood?
What?
You know, somewhere out there in the world, there are about a dozen former Boy Scouts now in their 60s, like myself, who think my name is Michael because I started Boy Scout sailing camp and I just told everyone my name was Michael. And I don't know why I did it, but for the whole week I was Michael. And as far as I know, I'm Michael. I've never encountered a single one of these people in the last 50 or so years, but like, so I kind of get it because I think around Thursday, we started on Sunday, it would have been really embarrassing to admit that I've been lying the whole week, that my name in fact was Dan and not, or at the time, Danny and not Michael. So I kind of get a little bit of where OP might have been at some point when I've gotten himself in too deep. But man, this situation sucks.
It so sucks. Oh my gosh. Like I'm even trying to imagine as a parent, you have your child and their partner over for dinner. You're meeting this person for the first time and they give you what is admittedly a strange reaction, right? And you're the parent trying to absorb this. And how do you react? When you think it is so universal, and I'm trying to imagine a place in the world where you would grow up where you wouldn't have experienced a potato. So, you're a little incredulous on this, and this guy is doubling down. Okay. And as a parent, what I feel I sh- had maybe, but I guess you would walk that line of incredulous and disbelieving and yet wanting to be generous to the fact that maybe this is entirely new to this person. Like I don't know. I'm really empathizing with the parents, but not with the anger, because I think they
Yeah.
the anger was what's most inappropriate here. Is like at the end of the day, who the fuck cares if this guy has ever had a potato or not had a potato, or if
Well,
he conned you and it started as a funny joke, or like I guess like the
I,
anger in the parents is what's really tripping me up here. It just seems
yeah,
inappropriate.
it is. And it's, I actually just I feel sad I feel it kind of like, oh, there's almost a slow motion train wreck happening
For
as you're
sure.
watching it. And by the way, people asked, and I generally preferred Mike to Michael. So most people called me Mike that
Thanks
week,
for clarifying. That's
more
helpful.
comfortable. I just preferred it over Michael. But some called me Michael as well. Um, but I so I but and having had this Mike experience that I had, like I heard this and I'm like, I could totally see how this guy, like, he starts out because he thinks it'll be funny, as he said,
Yeah.
and then it falls flat.
And so he
And
amps it up.
and now he's like, well, shit, I I can't like I can't admit that I did this thing because they don't see this as funny. They see this as me being a dick. So now my choice in the moment while eating is to either admit I am a dick or try to get through it by doubling down. Now he clearly made a mistake, and if there's ever a case where the every good rom-com could be solved by a good conversation 5 minutes in, this is it. But I get where the parents are coming from. Like, there's no way you don't know what a potato is. Like, you grew up, if assuming that I'm assuming this person, grew up in America, and there's just, the potatoes are unavoidable. Like, you're
But
going to
potatoes are
have had a baked
ubiquitous across
potato.
the world, regardless of the type of potato. I mean, there's Michael, link in the show notes, how many different types of potatoes across the world. Maybe in some Asian countries, maybe not. I don't
They
know.
all
But like,
originate in South America, and there are
right,
thousands. But yeah, they
right,
did circulate the globe then for sure.
right.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
of all of the things for this guy to double down on, potato is kind of hilarious because it is so ubiquitous
It
in
is.
some form or another.
Yeah, and if he didn't, and even if he didn't grow up here, if he's living in America, it would be hard to make it more than a couple of weeks without encountering a potato in some context or another. Um, so it's clearly like I'm sitting where I'm sitting where the dad is from him going, come on, like you're full of shit and don't be an asshole. Just fess up. Just fess up. And then he's doubling down. It sounds like, and then tripling down with this is really, like, now I don't think dad should have yelled and screamed and all that, but at some point it's like, dude, your joke isn't funny. Like, that would have been my
I
response at the point. Like, you know what? It's just not funny anymore. Like, it's cute. It's clever. I get what you're trying to do. I'm not buying it.
No, I totally agree. And oh, sorry guys, give me a second. Who is the guy that did the man? Oh, I totally agree. I am envisioning an Andy Kaufman bit here.
Yes. Yes.
That's what it was. Like in my
Absolutely.
head, he is this awkward, nervous Andy Kaufman type. Again, if you don't know who that is, we'll find some really great bit and link it in the show notes because he was a legend. But he was
Yeah.
awkward and he would carry a bit, and sometimes it wasn't all that funny, and you'd be like, "What?"
And the thing about Andy Kaufman is that to this day, since he died so young, and we don't know whether the bits he was doing, like to some degree, there's a lot of question about whether he really was, why they really bought some of what he said, or whether it was all a bit.
Right.
You're right. This has that Andy Kaufman feel to it, where the guy's like, and like Andy Kaufman, the bits he did were so over the top ridiculous that like he
Right.
couldn't possibly believe this.
Right. Right.
And
And
yet,
yet, he's not budging on the narrative.
he's
There's
not.
no crack of a
So
smile.
I don't. So first off, I don't think I don't. I mean, we're not necessarily the rendering a verdict yet, but I first off, I feel for everyone in the room.
Poor girlfriend. She's got to be doing like, what the fuck, man?
Poor
This is
girlfriend.
my parents. This is important. I trusted you to like make a good impression. Like she's got to be just dying inside.
Oh yeah, and he's got to be freaking out. Like, how am I going to get out of this? I can't believe I did this. This is so dumb of me. Like, this was not. Because I get it. Like, it's spoiler alert. I have some anxiety. Um, I mean, I'm a psychologist. It's that. So okay. So I get that. I get that the nervousness and wanting to do something. I get that, and I get the oh no, this is falling flat. I mean, like I totally get that, and I get dads being like, come on, dude, you're being a dick. Don't do this. Like just, and I get the girlfriend going, what the. It's a potato. Like, stop it. Like, why are you doing this? You're causing like, and everyone is just like,
Yeah. And again, unlike rom-com, we could have had a conversation. She could have called
yeah,
him up and said, "What the fuck, dude? Like, don't
yeah,
understand what happened here. We've gone out for burgers and fries. I can't even tell you how many times. What do you mean?
right,
What are you doing here? Oh man, it was a bit. It fell flat. I felt so embarrassed, and I didn't know how to reel it back. And you get vulnerable with your partner, and then she goes to her parents and says, "Okay, look, he showed up. He didn't know what to say. He's really sorry. Can we do a do-over? Like this is
there's
not an offense worth cutting you off and not responding to a text message. Like what
right."
the heck?
No, there was an opportunity. There are lots of opportunities for repair along the way.
Yeah,
And one of the most powerful things we can do when we realize that we have fucked up, one of the most powerful things we can do that's really relationship building and healing is to say, I got to just stop right here and say, I completely fucked up.
right.
Like, I can't believe like this was a huge mistake on my part, and it's hard for us to do that. We think
It
it's
is really hard.
like people will look down on us or think of this as a negative. But if we can get in that moment and just like I messed up so badly, that brings people closer to us.
Yeah.
Like we feel closer to the person who says, "I screwed up and I hurt you."
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, how powerful would it have just been if he had just said, "Sorry guys, I was really nervous. I didn't know what to say. I thought it would be funny and I totally miscalculated. I
Yeah,
apologize. Can I start again?" Like I
I do.
can't
Yeah,
imagine any parent in the world not going, "Yeah, I get what it's like to show up at the table of your girlfriend's parents for the first time. Sure, man. Appreciate it."
I've had that dinner. I remember having that dinner as a
Uh-huh.
as a as a 20-year-old young man. Like that dinner scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
I was so nervous. And they did things different. And it was weird. And
Yeah.
I totally get where he is. And I see everyone's perspective on this one. And so many opportunities missed. The biggest opportunity missed was the kid. Like he, instead of doubling, tripling down, he missed that opportunity. But everyone missed an opportunity here.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, let's go back to this is really funny. The idea of it really still just cracks me up. And I really hope someday one of my children bring home a partner who sits down to the baked potato I've prepared and examines it with absolute just oh gosh, wonder and amazement and
No,
as
you have
they've
to
never seen it
you
before.
have to say to
That
them,
would be hilarious.
you flip it. We made the most exotic dish. You've probably never had it before. It's called a baked potato.
I like this.
I love that. I love that. Like,
Don't tell
man,
my
we've had these.
children.
You
Hopefully they're
had
not going
them
to listen.
before? You've had them? Oh my gosh, they're so expensive. They're so hard to find. Where did your parents find potatoes? Like, you have an opportunity here.
Oh, I like it a lot. Mm.
Don't do that.
No.
Listeners, please don't do that. That's a really bad.
No, no. But I remember, so when we were starting this conversation, it did remind me of a conversation that I had with our co-host, our show host here, and the other Dr. MacBride in this conversation before we had children. And, and this idea of what do you teach children and how do you do it? And, they have absolute multiple minds. And,
Right.
as parents, we could, and we didn't. But,
Right.
like, do you teach them that red is blue and just, like you
Oh,
could?
don't do that.
No, I'm not advocating for it, but it's a conversation that you have before you have children, and you realize
Right.
there is power here, and
Thank
it
you.
must be
Thank
used
you. And
wisely.
I've met your children. You've clearly used your power for good and not for evil, and I
We
appreciate that.
did. We
Getting
did.
back to this thing though, I want to mention this issue this come up before, as we're both former forensic psychologists, of the idea
Mm.
when we've decided long ago that in order to be an asshole, you have to have done something with intent to harm or in some way knowingly done something terrible. And I while he walks up to the line with the doubling, tripling down, I still think it's all it's all out of anxiety, nervousness. So I'm not willing to call him an asshole because he lacks that, and and link in the show notes for this term, mens rea. He lacks this guilty mind that we need in order to commit certain crimes. That there has to be some intent there. Now,
Intent to harm. I mean, he did intend to create a joke, right? I mean, he
he
decided,
did,
he
he
made a
did.
decision. He describes this decision
Now,
point of, I'm anxious, I'm going to deal with my anxiety with humor.
right. One of the questions I have for potentially for our listeners is like, did he cross the line when he tripled down? And the other thing you've mentioned earlier, Gail, did did Dad cross the line with his level of anger?
I think that the dad, at least here, because I don't know that we had much from mom. And again, according to the way the post is written, we don't actually know, dad could have been annoyed or, whatever, like just not amused and interpreted it as anger out of this guy's extreme anxiety because he's
Right.
doubled and tripled down now and he's in these deep waters. So we don't actually know how dad responded, but as described, I think dad was not appropriate and he kind of, visits the Sucksville here area of behavior if he was indeed as angry as described. And it sounds like he may be the type of person who really doesn't take to being the butt of a joke very well and
Hmm.
is easily, hit that shame trigger.
Right.
And so often when we feel that shame trigger get hit, our response is to act in and speak with anger as a way to create self-protection. So,
Hmm.
as described, I think the attempt at humor created such anxiety in the dad that then that shame kind of came out as anger,
Process.
and which unfortunately exacerbated this poor boyfriend's
Yeah.
experience, right, of already being in heightened anger. So we really did this kind of toilet bowl swirl here
Oh
of
gosh. Yeah.
behaviors and choices. And unfortunately, everyone just shows up dirty.
Such a horrible situation, really,
Yeah.
really. So, Michael, what are the we now we're not. It doesn't sound like either one of us is calling anyone here an asshole, but there certainly are behaviors here that were really problematic and opportunities that were missed to not to not that they could have made this whole situation just a funny footnote in a wonderful relationship. But Michael, what did the internet say?
So yeah, the internet was, I mean, this was pretty neck and neck for you're the asshole, you're not the asshole.
Mm,
And the not the asshole wins out. Like they definitely had the most votes. But most of those comments were you're a comedic genius and like along that line, not like, not
Oh, he's
really
not a comedic
addressing.
genius. He's not unless it's funny as hell to completely screw up your relationship.
Yeah, and they did say like and several of them did actually talk about like, you didn't intend for this to go that way. You should have owned up to it at a certain point, but the father's reaction kind of put you in a corner, and so that was the you're not the asshole here, the father really is, and that was the finger pointing there. With the you're the asshole, it is, really everybody looking at like you did this to yourself. Like, you came up with this bit, you did this thing, and you didn't let go of the bit. Like, there were lots of opportunities for you to get out before the father got to the point of saying, like, you're fucking with us. Get the fuck out of my house. I'm not going to tolerate this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like you said, I'm sure is an aspect of not liking to be the butt of a joke and that shame part of it. And there were a couple people who said everybody sucks here. Like that was the third biggest
Yeah.
category because like the dad overreacted, the boyfriend definitely, like those two, and we don't really get a perspective of the rest of the dinner table. So I picture this dinner table with like the big family gathered around and like a variety. Like I wanted more of the spectrum of reactions. Like some
Right.
people had to be laughing and thinking it's funny. I can't imagine otherwise.
Yeah.
But the there were several people who pointed out they wanted to know what the high pitched noise sounded like that he made, which
Ooh. Ooh, this is so good.
Yeah.
I try imagining that as well.
Yeah, it's just such a bizarre thing, and I think your example of Andy Kaufman's a great one because
Yeah,
he
that is a good one.
yeah, that was a good call, Gail. But yeah, I mean that was really where it was at, was the not the asshole really then shouldered the blame towards the father. And I think you're right. I mean, I think like the mens rea, right? Like you didn't intend to create this situation, but you did have outs. He had chances.
He did. He did. I would have liked, if we bring in a tertiary character, I would have liked the girlfriend to show up a little bit more and be a partner here and help him bridge that gap back. Again, I don't think this is worthy of ending a relationship over. And I suppose we don't know that it ended, but she stopped calling him. She stonewalled him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There were opportunities. There were missed opportunities here. Did the relationship end? Do we know what happened down the road, Michael?
We don't, unfortunately. Even though it was an old post, I'd hoped that I would get updates because sometimes you do. And what I did see were a number of people asking for updates, like at 5 years, 1 year, 2 year. Like people were asking for updates on these
Never
things,
got one.
and we never got one. Unfortunately, there was one of my favorite comments was it was like, "Sir, you're a comedic genius, and you have found the best way possible to break up with in a relationship or to end a relationship or something like that."
Fair. Fair.
But yeah. Anyway, thanks again for another riveting debate and a glimpse into the collective conscience of the internet forums. Remember, morality is often shades of gray and not just potato, or what is this?
Or potato. And if you haven't had one, try them. They're delicious.
They are delicious, especially like you get fry. You can fry them, and they're really good if you fry them.
Ooh,
Have you tried a potato fried?
Fried? Like the whole thing? You just take the whole thing and just like
no. You cut it up into thin strips, and then you yes, and you put them in and oil, and you fry them, and then you dip them.
Oh man, don't tell me. Some people might even like. Would you dip them in anything?
Ketchup. I think ketchup is a good
Ketchup.
Ketchup.
Oh,
that's
ketchup.
Weird.
Is this tomato based? Never mind. Michael, take us out.
Wait, is it butter or oil? Like, what do you fry it in? Sorry. Anyway, please follow and share his Veritas views on any of the podcast platforms with your neighbors and friends. And as always, stick around through the credits for the bonus conversation about, I'm going to throw something their way. So we'll find out on the other side of the credits.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
Thanks for listening. As promised, here's that bonus conversation. So some people may not know, but as in addition to podcast part, I am also kind of a behind the scenes guy at Veritas Psychology Partners. And I couldn't help but notice that both of you did things recently related to narcissism. So, Gayle, you had an interview with Beth Ann for an article for Parade Magazine about Nartok, which I had never heard of before.
Actually, I think that was in Parents.
Was it in Parents? Oh, I'm sorry.
It was in Parents. Yeah,
you're right. It was in Parents, because it was about the parenting. Like, what do you do when you see your child participating in Nartok? That's right. And then Dan, you were posting about a recent study about narcissism on TikTok. And I just kind of was curious, like, I guess, like, why do you think that is something that we're talking about these days? But then also, more importantly, like, what do people get wrong about this? Because that was a lot of, I think, what I was getting from your, in general, comments about narcissism is that this is kind of overused and misunderstood.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just interject and say, like, I don't think that these two activities that Dan and I both had this week were in any way connected. They just happened to come up this week, and I think because it's in the ether, and we're spending a lot of time talking about narcissism. And so, Dan, I'm going to let you answer first. What do you think we get the most wrong about narcissism?
Yeah, I think that like we talked about this with gaslighting too, people see behavior that's a bit self-centered, or they see behavior the person is focused on me, and just automatically jump to narcissistic personality disorder. And we all have traits in us. We're all a bit selfish. We all do things out of line. We all do things that we all disappoint our partners sometimes. And I think we jump to, this person is a narcissist. So I think what we get wrong is labeling right off the bat behavior as necessarily due to narcissistic personality disorder. Now, when we actually do have a narcissist, the biggest mistake we make is not recognizing the core of narcissism. And the core of narcissism isn't a desire to show that you're better than everyone else. The core of narcissism is dealing with the belief, with your own internal belief that you are no good and worthless, which you defend against so powerfully by putting everyone else down, and in doing so, unconsciously doing so, make yourself feel like you're not worthless. So those are the two things I think about narcissism we get wrong most of all. I don't know, Gayle, your thoughts?
No, I completely agree, and thank you very much for stealing my answer. So I'll give a slightly different answer because that would be really uninteresting for the purposes of the podcast to be like, yeah, ditto. I am going to go ahead and say that, I think because we are having these conversations and we're putting them out there in really public spaces, we forget that this is a diagnosis that should be given by a qualified and trained professional, that we are really quick to apply this label in casual ways, as if this isn't a very serious way of interacting with your world, interacting with other people. And, it comes from a longstanding pattern, and we forget that it really should be a mental health or a psychiatric mental health provider who is qualified to make this diagnosis before we slap a label on someone. So I just really want to caution people using this word. It is a bit dangerous.
I think to some degree we're participating unwittingly in a grand experiment in medical students' disease.
Yes.
And med students' disease, it's a tongue-in-cheek term, but it's a real phenomenon, and that's that medical students, as they go through, they learn a little bit about each thing. And as they learn this, okay, this symptom means this disorder, they begin having anxiety that they themselves or some family member of theirs has this disorder based on this small amount of information. And then, of course, as they progress through, they recognize the bigger picture and that stops happening. But it's very common in especially first-year medical students. And so with TikTok and Instagram Reels and Reddit and all of these social media platforms out there, people are getting essentially medical students' disease, and we're
Yeah,
seeing,
no, that's a really good point.
my partner has a narcissistic personality disorder. I have ADHD. And I love the fact that we're making people aware of these disorders. Like, oh, I need to go get help because I have symptoms that look like this. That's terrific. But I think people are unfortunately like seeing this and going, oh, this must be me, or oh, this must be my partner, and then acting on that information as if it's factual without getting a good diagnostic workup done.
Yes.
So there you go, Michael.
Thank you.
Do you want to add to that, Gayle, or did I prattle on?
No, you did a great job. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I do remember as a early psychology student looking through the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual from which we pull our diagnoses and going, oh my.
Yeah.
And then having that thought of like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
right. Multiple contexts and deep-rooted, enduring patterns and some of those things, and going, phew, you know what I mean? Like there is that phenomenon as you learn about this. And unfortunately, a 3-minute TikTok can't really take you through the nuances of diseases and disorders and personality styles. And so,
yeah, thank you. And I'm thinking back to last week's episode with Dr. David Nathan. One of the things he brought up that I think is useful to think about, like with TikTok and that kind of thing, is you can hear tricks and tips for dealing with these things. And even that doesn't necessarily mean that you have that condition, but you could still benefit from those things. So if you hear something online that resonates with you and it works in your setting, I think make list making or any of these other things that help with some of those things, you can absorb those without going, oh, I have ADHD, or I'm a narcissist, or whatever it might be.
Or my partner's a narcissist. Maybe I learned from the video that I need to set healthy boundaries, and this is what a good boundary looks like in a relationship where I'm feeling this way without applying the label.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Tune in again next week for a whole nother Am I the Asshole debate.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.